Okay, we'll be live.
Okay, thanks, Gavin. Morning, folks, and welcome to the Nottinghamshire and City of Nottingham Fire and Rescue Authority Community Safety Committee. First of all, have we had any apologies for absence?
None received yet, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. Let's have a look at the minutes of the last meeting. Let's have a look for points of accuracy, first of all. Has anyone got any points of accuracy? If you have, just to remind people, you can raise your hand in participants or at the bottom under reactions. Councillor Khan? You're on mute, Councillor.
I say I agree with the minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you agree the minutes. So, okay. Have you got any matters arising? Anybody on those minutes? No, I'm not seeing any. Okay, they're accepted as a true record.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. Thank you very much. Move on to item 4, an update on the areas of improvement from the inspection report 2019. It's over to you, Craig.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As background of the report for members, you'll be aware from the HMI inspection, we ended up with 25 kind of areas for improvement. Also that came in that we took from that report was a number of other sort of departmental level areas for improvement. So sort of the lower level from these highlighted points. Pleased to say that we're kind of coming to the end really, and members will note there's only 2 areas for improvement that will be reported to this committee because it was agreed by authority that the areas for improvement will be reported to separate committees. So we've got AFI 9 and 4 still outstanding. Recommendations of the report are to note the progress being made and agree the extension. In terms of the 2 FIs, one is around evaluating the impact we're actually having. And that was on the basis that we were doing an evaluation into our safe and well visits. So what people would see in their homes from our fire crews and our prevention teams in terms of the risk from fire and all the hazards in the home. Clearly, the reason for the delay has been COVID in terms of we're using Nottingham Trent University, and they've been a great supporter of ours for a number of years, and certainly some of the work I've been doing with them. So we've managed to still do the report through COVID in terms of evaluation. However, we've not been able to get that to the senior leadership team as quickly as we'd like to before this committee. That is due to arrive, I believe, on the 23rd for SLT to consider that report from NTU. And as spoke to the Chair, Councillor Rain, we will look to see whether that's appropriate to bring it to this committee so that members can see more of that evaluation. So we're asking just for a bit of an extension just so we can finally close it off. And then AFI 9 relates to really about the access to risk information that firefighters get on fire engines. So members may not be aware, we have a computer terminal on fire appliances. They've been on there for many years now. And what firefighters can actually do is they can access a range of information. And that could be things like how cars are built and designed, so they can help them understand design when they're cutting them up at the side of the road, information around chemical hazards. But more importantly, for the purpose of this AFI, they do access risk information on buildings and particular sites. So not necessarily just buildings, but risk sites that are in the city and county. So site-specific risk information, or SSRI is the True Fire Service abbreviation. And there was some criticism about the validity, how we update and how we store and keep it updated. And there were some issues around the reliability of the terminals themselves. So that work is still ongoing at the moment. We're hopeful that that will come to an end in the near future. I was asked whether we could put that in front of members on this occasion. I was not reassured enough that we'd got the evidence at this stage to bring it to this committee. So I've deferred that. Well, clearly the outcome of that is it's delayed the deadline or the reporting to members based on the planned deadline. And if I receive those reassurances, I'll be bringing that to the next available committee for members to scrutinise. So that's probably all I'd like to say about the report, Chair, and the recommendations laid out, and happy for any questions from yourself or members, Chair.
Thank you very much, Craig. Councillor Khan? Yeah, you're on mute again, Gil.
Sorry. Yeah, Craig, I want to know about, it's on the page 11, 2.8, about the, request of the sport, the extension of area for improvement 4. Which is area 4 and 9? You get me?
Yeah. I think that they're outlined there, Gull. If you have a look at 2.4, it mentions that the 4 is ensuring that prevention work is targeted at people at risk, and the AF9 is the mobile data terminals. They're on the fire appliances that Craig was talking about. I don't know if Craig wants to expand on that and explain a bit about what the problem is with the terminals.
It's slightly complicated in all honesty. I think if you're in the fire service, so things like, area managers that are on the call, whether it be Gavin or Mick or Bryn, they kind of really understand what the issues are. So I'll try and keep it brief. I think the Sistel and the way we store information, the way it's sent from the service. So crews will go out and visit a particular site that has a particular risk for us. They will then send that information to headquarters, and that will be processed, and that will be uploaded onto the NDTs electronically. So there's some issues around the process from turning it into from what the firefighter went to see on the site and getting that on the actual mobile data terminals. And there's some issues around, are they all being put onto all fire engines? So there's some audit work we've probably got to do to make sure that both the hardware and our ways of working are actually working. So it might be, Councillor Khan, that London Road, for example, it might be that one of the fire engines gets updated and we're not reassured that the second fire engine at London Road might be updated. So then, of course, oncoming appliances, have they got that information should they need it? Because there may not always be the same appliance that gets to the risk site first. So we need to have that reassurance. So we're doing some work between service delivery, area manager Sharman, particularly area manager Coleman, because there's more information it's not just about fires here. A lot of this work is around some of, say, the protection side as well, because these sites have got particular issues. And then there's the sort of technology support side. There's also the link from that around our joint control function and Sistel. So, of course, we've got our mobilising system in control, which is provided by Sistel, and then our own internal systems and infrastructure. So we're still having to work through that. And I say the area managers are working really hard to get to the point where we can firstly reassure me that then I'm happy to bring the report to you as members to provide you reassurance on that one. So that's what that one's about. And the one about the safe and well visits, the Fire and Rescue Service, including Nottinghamshire, has had some criticism, and quite rightly as well, from HMI, that we do not evaluate the impact of what we do. And I think you could say that across the whole of the public sector and industry about, do they evaluate to know what they are doing and is it having an impact? So this is a key piece of work for us, because we use the Charlie matrix. Members may have heard the Charlie matrix. And that really is an analogy for summing up who would come into the persons at risk framework. So living a chaotic life, alcohol or drug dependent, those kind of things, 65 plus in terms of age range. So NTU have done a report for us, provided a report for us around evaluating that piece. What that hopefully will then do is we can shape and learn future safe and well visits to make sure, one, that they are fundamentally right, but then we are targeting them at the right people. And of course, that then feeds into, we want to make sure that the fire crews, the productivity, so the number of our community members that we visit actually increases and we manage risk better. So I give a sort of sad examples. The fire fatalities we've had in recent times, there's clear and strong examples that fire smoke alarm ownership is not near where we nationally may have thought it was. Now, that's not conclusive evidence, because I think nationally they think, well, we're at around 80-odd%. A couple of fire fatalities where we've gone and then done community reassurance, we're somewhere around the 40 and 50% mark of smoke alarm ownership in those communities. So the evaluation work, Councillor, is very much around trying to make improvements to the services we deliver to communities in the future. And it was just because of COVID, we've had to receive that report late from NTU. And then internally, it's took us longer. So we've not been able to get to this committee as we had planned, because we thought we would get it to this committee. We've just not been physically able to do that.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. That's a very full explanation. Okay, colleagues, have we got any more questions before we look at these? The recommendations, as mentioned, and note the progress made against the areas for improvement and agree the extensions for 4 and 9. Are we happy to do that? Could I have a show of hands from colleagues, please? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, that's agreed. So I'm scrolling back, and it always takes some time on one of these iPads, doesn't it? The next one is our next item, which is the service delivery performance report, which again is Craig.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And if I could, with Bryn Coleman and Mick Sharman, I believe this is Bryn's first CS committee as the head of our area manager, head of prevention and protection, since some internal changes. And what I would like to do is, with Mick and Bryn, use them to go through their respective areas. So Mick will walk us through the response side, and Bryn will walk us through the prevention and protection elements. I'd just kind of like to sort of say and put it out there on record that despite COVID over this last year or so, we've been doing some excellent work, and my thanks and praises. I know members have routinely gone out to the workforce, and we've got some amazing work that we've been doing and levels of work we've been doing. So I think, you know, my thanks goes there, and I think certainly Appendix B of the report, members will see about the additional things that this organisation has been doing and the workforce have been supporting us with. Not just operational workforce, I have to say, because sometimes it's always been seen as the firefighter and the fire engine. The whole of the workforce, whether it be somebody in HR, occupational health, or our prevention team, non-operational roles, have done some amazing work. So I just want to put that on record, Chair. And if I could, hand over to Mick first, and then Bryn to walk us through the respective sections. Mick.
Thank you, Craig. Morning, councillors. The reporting period this time round is actually quite shorter than usually reported to Community Safety Committee. And that's to do with the compressed timescale of Community Safety Committee from the last time we had one. So some of the numbers and some of the figures are slightly low. But in the period of 1st of December to 31st of January, which this report covers, is that we've had 1,228 incidents. Now that's a decrease of the same period from previous reporting of approximately about 123 incidents. Now, what's worth pointing out on section 2.1 of the report, it clearly identifies the breakdown and the types of incidents that we've undertaken. It does identify that unfortunately we're reporting that we have 3 incidents involving fatalities during that period. Now, that is actually incorrect. Since the time of publication, we've had further reports and further investigations, and that's actually 2. Still a very sad number, but it's not 3. It's actually 2 individuals. The other fatality was due to natural causes. So that's just a correction of the figures there. Worthy of note in terms of the incidents that we've attended, we've rescued 9 people within that time. Unfortunately, 10 people suffered serious injury, but not fatalities. We've had 13 incidents that required a significant multi-agency approach, where we've worked alongside fire and rescue services from across the border and also our other colleagues within the other blue light services. If I could draw members' attention to paragraph 2.3, members will be very much aware that we have a attendance target of attending all incidents within an average of 8 minutes. It's pleasing to report that we are currently in excess of that, achieving that standard, and currently we are averaging a time of 7 minutes 42 within that reporting period. Also, another key important measure that to ensure that we have the necessary resources available is highlighted in paragraph 2.4. As members will be aware, the delivery of our response model and also many other activities, we rely very much heavily on our on-call colleagues. And it's pleasing to report that the on-call availability during the reporting period is 92%. That's very good, and to sing the praises, as Craig's just done there, of colleagues on the on-call, it shows exceptional commitment. And just to give you some assurances, councillors, is that 92% is many other fire and rescue services across the country would be looking at us very enviously about how we are achieving those figures. So it's really pleasing to report. We have a standard target of 85%, and it's pleasing to report that 14 of the 16 sections are achieving that. And the highest level of availability was Stapleford during that period of 99%, which is exceptional. From previous reports, it was councillors' wish that we report the availability of Ashfield and Retford due to the changes that we undertook approximately 2 years ago now regarding day shift crewing and the changes there. So highlighted in paragraph 2.5 is those changes. It's pleasing to report that the availability of one appliance is very good, but we still do face a challenge to the availability of that second appliance. And as you see from the report, Ashfield's second appliance is 43% and Retford's at 33%. We do continue to support this, and we do continue to try and drive and improve this, but we do face the constant challenges around this. Section 2.6 really identifies and ensures members are assured about the level of service that we receive as part of the joint control that we share with Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service. There's two key performance indicators that we use to measure. One of those we've done particularly well in terms of the time that we answer the call and we mobilise the appliances. Unfortunately, the second target in terms of the availability of the mobilising system, due to a power outage and an impact on some internal infrastructure, it did prove some difficulties during that reporting period. And whilst we only missed it, it's 0.2%, it still is below what the service standard that we expect. We've got Area Manager Harris on the call. Area Manager Harris and ourselves, along with Derbyshire colleagues, work tirelessly to make sure that the availability of the system remains at the levels we expect. If I could draw members' attention to 2.8, the Home Office report on an annual basis the attendance figures across English Fire and Rescue Services. And they usually, they report them retrospectively. So we are looking at 2019 and 20 year. Now I've put a table within 2.8, but as a summary, just is that from the reporting figures, it looks like Nottinghamshire is below the English average. Now, on face value, this is of a concern. But what I would like to do, and just to give some members assurances, at a future meeting, I would like to give members a further detailed breakdown of why this is the case. And to put it simplistically, for the way that it's understandable for myself in some ways, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges, the way that we measure information across fire and rescue services. However, saying that, it'd be remiss of us not to look at the data and use the data to see if we can drive continuous improvement within the service. So what I would hope to do is that I bring further analysis back to the committee to demonstrate that we are in a good and healthy place and doing everything we possibly can. I'll just quickly cover the COVID-19 partnership work, and the information is there, and just to sort of support what Craig said, is that the whole of the service has continued to do excellent work in terms of supporting the community during the difficult time of COVID-19. And there's lots of information in there about how we've continued doing befriending, food parcels, etc. I have spotted a mistake. It looks like we've got a comma in the wrong place in 2.16, and it talks about the delivering. It shows that we've delivered 2,316 vaccinations within that period. But as Craig pointed out, overall we're now in excess of. This is just firefighters and other members of the service have delivered in excess of 25,000 vaccinations now. And I think that's absolutely outstanding. And thank you very much for that, Councillors. If I can hand it over to Area Manager Coleman.
Thanks, Mick. Mick, I think there's a question first.
Yeah, could we, thanks, Mick. I think if we just take questions at this stage, because I think we might have a couple. And just to mention of what Mick's just said there in terms of the other work, if you look at Appendix B, it's actually got the figures, and there's been some superb work there, not just on vaccinations, but on food parcels, over 12,000 delivered and so on. It really is commendable that work's been done. I've got a number of hands. Parry?
Thanks, Chair. Page 17, about the partnership work. I would like personally to thank everybody who participate in the task to support our vulnerable communities. And furthermore, this will be my last meeting at the Fire Authority, and I would like to thank everyone. I will miss the Fire Authority tremendous over the years. I've been working with everybody, and I can't remember how many years I've been a member of it, but I wish everyone will stand again to be successful, whatever persuasion or party come from. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks very much for your service. You will really be missed. I'm sure I'll speak for everybody there. Gull.
Thank you, Chair. I've got page 14, 2.1. I can see that 121 deliberate fire, and there was a 3 incident in a fatality, but not yet confirmed. These are the fire facilities or not. But did anybody got arrested on this when they deliberate fire?
Hi, Councillor. I can try and answer that as best possible, please.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. I do not have that. I do not have the information to hand in terms of what the outcome of those deliberate fires are. But what I would give assurances to Councillor is that if, as part of our operational procedures, if we suspect that it's a deliberate fire, that automatically we would involve the other authorities around that, and depending upon the nature of that deliberate fire. We would obviously work with the police, and it could involve further investigations through our arson task force team, which Area Manager Coleman manages, and we would work together with the police to prosecute and bring charges where we feel, or the police feel, that is appropriate.
Thanks, Mick. Can I just go back to can we just go back to 2.3, because I just want to explain, to make sure members are aware of this and any public are watching. You talk about we're hitting our target of 7.42 minutes for response time, and then we've got the 3 priorities, priority 1, priority 2 and priority 3, that are all above that. So priority 1's 8.45 minutes, priority 2 7.54, and priority 3 8.20 minutes. Can you just explain to members, because I know myself why this is, why there's a disparity or a difference there?
I will, Councillor, and I can. There's in terms of reporting, we are required to report against the 3 priority levels that you've identified there. Additional to that, there is a different classification, which would be automatic fire alarms, and our attendance to those automatic, and there's a saying within the fire service: it's only a false alarm or an automatic false alarm on the way back. So, and what we're trying to say there is that until we know, until we're in attendance of those premises and we understand what the nature of that incident is, it's a fire call just like any other fire call. I could, if members required, I could start reporting that as an average as well, which might be prudent as well to determine our response overall from that. In terms of what I think is always striking as well, Councillor, is that in terms of priority 1, which stands out at 8.45, which is the most severe, and as it says there, immediate threat to life or pose a risk to severe human injury, compared to a time where priority 2, where we seem to attend quicker. Now, essentially, there's a difference there, because within priority 1, for example, you would expect to find road traffic collisions, which, as you very much will be aware, they could be anywhere within the county, which means that the time taken to travel to these is usually in greater excesses where you would get a priority 2, which predominantly covers building fires. And as we know, where our fire engines and our resources are placed, they are placed to deal with many of those, the built environment. So that's the reason that there's a disparity there.
Okay, thanks, Mig. That's very clear. Thanks for your work. It's appreciated. I think we'll move on now and welcome Bryn to his first meeting. Great to see you. Sorry, Councillor Khan.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I've got a question here. Page 18, 2.21 is community reinsurance and engagement. I mean, you're targeted to make the 653 properties, and which was 204 have received fire safety advice. Could you explain me that, what sort of advice you've given them so we can talk to the communities?
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, we've not actually gone on to that. Bryn's about to do his prevention now, so we're a bit preemptive, but I'm sure he'll bear that in mind when he does his presentation. Welcome, Bryn.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you for the welcome. And can I just say, I'm really, really pleased to have taken over from Area Manager Damien West in the role of Head of Prevention, Protection and Fire Investigation midway through this reporting period. As I'm sure members will be aware, it's a really, really challenging period across the country, and particularly, in the fire and rescue service. Prevention and Protection have got a proportion of our staff currently seconded to assist with what we're calling the partner assistance cell. So I've got members of my staff out vaccinating, they're training people to undertake flow testing, and the driving ambulances. So that's left us a bit short on the ground in terms of boots on the ground. But what I've been really, really impressed with is how the remainder of the department have stepped up to the plate, really, and are delivering all of our statutory functions across the service as we would expect. So if I can just take you through initially the prevention part of the report. As you can see there at 2.17, we are still conducting the post-incident safe and well visits, which, needless to say, is once we've had a fire in a property, we will try and leave that property safe following the fire to make sure that those residents are as safe as possible. Clearly, with the impact of COVID, our normal referrals for safe and wells has had to cease in terms of the operational crews delivering those visits, but we are still doing them post-visit. In addition to that, the Deputy Chief's already touched on our Charlie risk profile, which is those most at risk of fire, and like you're probably aware, over 65, live alone, probably smoke, probably take alcohol, known to social services. All those factors make them more at risk of fire and, unfortunately, fire fatalities. So if they're still coming out as a high or very high category in terms of our risk profile, members of my team are still going out, and we're actually doing physical visits for those most at risk. So you can be assured that those risks are still taking place. We're making sure we've got the correct PPE on, and we are entering those properties to make sure that we'll leave them safe. The medium risk properties, so those that are not so much at risk of fire, which is normally dealt with by our operational crews, we're actually pausing the safe and well visits because of the COVID pandemic. And we've got quite a backlog, as I'm sure you can imagine, because we've got a really, really established partner referral system, and our partners are very enthusiastic at still referring individuals to us to undertake a safe and well. But unless they're very high risk or high risk, we're not actually doing the physical visits. That's not stopped us though, because since the beginning of December, we've done over 900 telephone or safe and well visits. So we are actually doing a telephone triage service, where members of the team are contacting members of the community, trying to assess the risk, trying to mitigate it as much as possible, but clearly not on all occasions, if they're medium risk, can we actually physically fit the smoke alarms at this time. Going back to Councillor Khan's comments in terms of the community reassurance and engagement visits, like Area Manager Sharma has mentioned, we've had some serious incidents over the last sort of 8 or 9 week periods, particularly in the Warsop, Ashfield, Hucknall and Stock Hill areas, which have resulted in some fatalities. And we do try and then do a community engagement visits in those areas because the incident has been high profile, probably, and also because it gives community concern. So it's a process of door knocking, and obviously because of the pandemic, some residents are not happy to receive us into the property. But those that are, we've conducted, as I say, the 204 fire safety advice and 148 new smoke alarms. So that will be a safe and well visit as we would do into normal circumstances, whether they are medium, high or very high risk. Because there's been an incident in those areas, we have targeted those. And we've managed to enter properties on 204 occasions, which, considering where we are at the height of the pandemic, December, January, is really, really good. And we've had to be cognizant of the concerns of residents because of the pandemic, but also the concerns that they've got in terms of fire safety. One doesn't trump the other. So we've had to tread a very fine line, really, of making sure that people are both safe from the pandemic and safe from fire. Moving on, we're still engaging in the road safety campaigns, smoke alarm purchasing and dry January. And as you can imagine, again, because of the pandemic, that's been predominantly on social media, which has delayed some of our normal initiatives that we were doing in terms particularly of road safety. And we've had to suspend our sort of normal community engagement activities, which we normally use the data to drive us into particular areas, unless there's been a fire on that occasion. So we're very much trying to do as much as we can with the restrictions and the conditions which are applied to us, as I say, and there's a lot of work on the individuals which have been left in the department due to colleagues supporting the wider pandemic. I'll just pause there, Chair, in case there are any questions on prevention before I move on to the protection element.
Thanks, Bryn. Have we got any questions at all for Bryn in terms of that? Has your question been answered, Councillor Khan? You happy with that?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we've got any further questions, Bryn, if you want to move on.
I'll move on to protection then. So I'm sure, as members are aware, the protection element looks at the safety of buildings as opposed to prevention, which looks after the safety of the individuals. We've continued with our services risk-based inspection programme, which again, in a similar way to the Charlie profile, categorises those buildings which are most at risk of fire with various different factors, whether there's a sleeping risk, whether there's a historical risk, the fire loading of those premises. So that's how we target which premises we're going to inspect and how often we're going to inspect them. You can see the figures in 2.24. We've certainly not been slowing down in terms of that. We're again doing as much as we can with the restrictions which are on us. With 60 pre-planned inspections, we've had 19 complaints and 21 post-fire inspections that we've been undertaken by the fire safety inspectors. Unfortunately, we've had to issue one enforcement notice, and we've had 11 other specific inspections. Building consultations still come in terms of the building regulations, which are the new builds. We've had over 127 of those, and we've done 35 consultations for Ofsted, which is education establishments, and also the Care Quality Commission, which will be residential nursing homes. So again, a really, really busy period for the team. I'm sure members will be aware of a lot of the development that still is taking place, particularly in the city area in terms of student accommodation. And we've been engaging the experience of a fire engineer from Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service for the new Vantage Future Generation student accommodation, which is a city high-rise development of over 400 student flats, which I believe is Traffic Street area of the city, close to the train station. So again, another prestigious development. As you can see from 2.25, we're currently after using the expertise of a fire engineer from Leicestershire, but we have got two members of my team which are working towards their fire engineering qualification. It's going to take them in the region of 2 to 3 years to complete that qualification, but hopefully at the end of that period we'll have in-house qualifications. I think it's worth mentioning at this point that fire engineers are in really, really short supply across the country at the moment, and a precious commodity. So we're hoping to grow our own and obviously retain our own, so that we've got that in-house experience moving forward. One of the other areas of work we've been looking at is the attendance at unwanted fire signals and unwanted lift rescues. We've had 155 unwanted fire signals and 10 unwanted lift rescues, and letters have gone out. We very much go along the basis. We try and explain to businesses and the responsible persons in those businesses of how they can mitigate that to reduce an unwanted fire signal. As Area Manager Sharma has already said, we only ever come back from a false alarm, and we never attend a false alarm on blue lights. So we're trying to reduce that. And the normal, the highest numbers are still within the City University hospitals in Kingsmill. So particular effort is working with the NHS in those hospitals. They also present the highest risk to us, as you can probably imagine. To supplement some of my fire safety inspectors, area manager Sharman's crews, the crew and watch managers on our operational appliances, they've undertaken a level 3 fire safety qualification. And the intention is, once the restrictions have lifted, is that our operational crews, the supervisory managers of those operational crews, will be undertaking business safety checks. So they'll be going around doing, I suppose, low level, for want of a better word, fire safety inspections at more businesses. That will free up the capacity of my fire safety inspectors to work on more complex buildings. And one of the things we've had to do during the pandemic and the lockdown is utilise the fire safety inspectors to assess the competencies and assess some of the work that the crew and watch managers are doing in terms of gaining that qualification. Quite onerous, as you can imagine, because we want to make sure our staff are fully competent before they go out there. So we have been focusing really quite a lot on our crew and watch managers' competencies in this area, particularly because as soon as the restrictions are lifted, we want our operational crews to support us as quickly as possible by inspecting low-level businesses. Moving on, we're also still continuing to work very closely with the City Council in terms of our joint audit and inspection team. Again, that suffered some delays because of the COVID outbreak, but again, we are targeting the high-rise multi-occupancy residential premises in the city as part of the JATE, as I'm sure you're aware it's called. Building risk review. So the National Fire Chiefs Council has asked us to review all of our 120 high-rise residential properties by the end of 2021. We're still on target to achieve that. In this period, we've done a further 10 premises, and we've got 68 premises still to review. As I say, I am confident we're going to get to that target by the end of the year, which is reassuring to know. Whenever we do get a fire in a high-rise residential property, we have to put a report in to the National Fire Chiefs Councils detailing the actions that we've taken, what we've used, and if there's been any significant concerns. And during the reporting period, we've had fires in 7 high-rise buildings. Nothing has been of concern. You know, it's a frequent occurrence, as you can probably see, and there's been no significant lessons that have been identified, Chair. And that is protection. So again, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thanks very much, Bryn. I'd like to echo, there's obviously been some excellent work done. I know from City Council point of view, we know about JATE in particular, and the inspections of a high-rise residential property. It's good to hear that that's on track, because I know it's extremely important. Do any colleagues have any other questions or anything they'd like to raise about this part of the report? No. Can I just raise the issue, just an explanation around the fire engineer? Because I know we've had some problems recruiting and retaining. You have to have a degree, don't you? Is this why it takes such a long time to train them and then retain them?
Exactly that. So members are probably aware, we went out to advert for a fire engineer. So we went to the open market, we advertised it on the National Fire Chief Council's website, we went national with it, and we had no candidates applied, or no suitably qualified candidates. That is because every fire and rescue service and a lot of commercial businesses are after their own fire engineers. Unfortunately, since the sad events of Grenfell, fire engineers are in really, really short supply. And if you are qualified and you are already in work, you're not looking for a further opportunity. So we've taken the decision that we're going to try and grow our own, if you like, of in-house experience. And there's 2 members of the department which are undertaking that qualification at the moment at the University of Central Lancashire. At this present moment in time, but it will take, the next 2 to 3 years plus before they are competent and have their degree qualification.
Okay, thank you, Bryn. Colleagues, have we got any more comments on that? Is there anything you'd like to add, Craig?
I suppose just a bit of a look forward, really, Chair, around kind of the whole sort of service delivery thing. Members will know that from next year we're in our final year of our current community plan, so the IRMP. A new RMP is being developed through this year that members will see in draft, and hopefully we'll have some degree of engagement with throughout this year. We're now looking, certainly myself, area managers Coleman and Sharman, about what does our next delivery plan within the RMP look like. And again, over the coming months, we and our colleagues that we'll draw into that will start thinking about those things that we will be targeting for the next 3 years after 2022-25. And again, what I hope to do, Chair, is bring something to this committee in draft or otherwise to give you maybe just a flavour really of what are our thinking for the coming years, and to try and give you some more of a bit of a longer term strategic view. And also, of course, we've got HMI coming. So within the next 12 months or so, depending on COVID, the way that HMI wish to do it, HMI will be back with us. I think they'll see some great improvements. What I would sort of say to that is that the HMI are going to be very more pointed on their second round of visits. So they're going to be able to dig in deeper in some areas. So what's incumbent on us is to try and read what they're looking for and continue to make some improvements. But a couple of big events there, new RMP and a future of HMI coming back to see us, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Craig. It's got very busy times ahead. Okay. I don't know if any colleagues got anything else to add, because that is the end of our formal agenda, unless anyone's got any AOB that they'd like to raise. I've not been given any. No. In that case, I will close the meeting, wishing colleagues all the best in the forthcoming elections and selections, whatever happens to you. Hope to see people there, and farewell to Parry. Thanks for your service. Thank you very much.